Seven H Slamil Slamazo Haas and Fever Incorporated. We're gonna do. Okay, you guys, we're talking about Laverne and Shirley today. Welcome to the Glitter Boom Girls podcast. I'm Robbie-Ann McPherson on the East Coast.
I'm Amy Asbury on the West. You know what? I'm Amy DeFazio on the West Coast.
All right, I'm Robbie Feeney. I'll be Robbie Feeney. So we're doing a total deep dive into Laverne and Shirley, the iconic sitcom from the 1970s into early 80s, starring Cindy Williams and Penny Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
Yay!
Laverne and Shirley.
Right. So my first, when someone says to me, Laverne and Shirley, the first thing that pops into my head is that iconic apartment. Like
the
that
basement apartment.
Right.
I loved that apartment.
And it was like dingy, you know, with like the weird tile floor, the sitcom stage tile floor. And then they had that little bedroom off to the side. Now it's a one bedroom, you guys. Remember? They shared a room with twin beds.
Well, it's kind of like Three's Company, how Janet and Chrissy perfectly, lived side by side in their room with two twin beds.
Right. And one of the things I loved about the show, because nowadays you watch a sitcom and it's like the Friends apartment or something, which no one could really afford or it barely exists or whatever. And people usually live somewhere scarily beyond their means in TV shows and movies. But I mean, that was pretty realistic. Like these two girls, working at Schatz Brewery, probably
in Milwaukee.
Yep, in Milwaukee, making an hourly wage. And they also showed, which was unusual for a sitcom, a lot of winter.
Is that why I liked it so much? I loved, you guys, first of all, that set was used before on television, everybody. That set is a repurposed set from The Odd Couple.
I did not know that. So
if you
Felix
look at the bones
and
of it, you will recognize it.
Felix and Oscar's apartment was okay. So we'll have to put up some contrasting pictures of that. That's really interesting. And do you know which studio where they shot that? Was it maybe CBS or?
You know what? It was an ABC show. So I don't know where ABC shot. Probably Burbank or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, because like sometimes they would shoot at the CBS production, even though it was like another show. But I don't know where they. We can probably look that up while we're talking. So that's really interesting. And then upstairs they had Mrs. Babish, who was their.
That's their landlady.
Yeah, their landlady.
Edna Babish.
Yeah. Now did Lenny and Squiggy? They lived in the building too, right?
They lived upstairs, yes.
Yeah.
And they used to yell through like the dumb waiter, I think, at each other.
That's right. And didn't Squiggy come down in the dumb waiter at some point?
Probably.
Or, right, in the kitchen?
Probably. Lenny Kosnowski and Andrew Squigman.
Right. Played by Michael Keaton. Right.
Michael McKean.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, not Batman. Michael McKean. And David, what was Squiggy's last
David
name?
Lander. David Lander.
That's right. I thought those guys honestly were like whenever they came on screen, I felt like the show brightened up a lot. Like not to take away from Penny Marshall and Shirley Feeney. Apparently, I need more tea today from Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams. But there was something about Lenny and Squiggy that really made me laugh. I loved those two.
You know, it's funny. The guys who played them were friends in college. They went to Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, and they actually were in a comedy troupe, and they created those characters before they even were on the show. So it's funny. They actually were writers on Laverne and Shirley, those two guys, and then they kind of like injected those characters into the sitcom.
Wow, that's really interesting. And so when did Lenny and Squiggy first appear?
I think they were there from the jump. I'm trying to look here. I know they were the upstairs neighbors, and they were always kind of like, who was the guy that was always biting on his hand?
Yeah, that was Squiggy.
Girl.
No, wait. No, they both did that.
Yeah, whenever they
Yeah.
saw a girl walk by, they would like
Yeah,
rub her neck.
right, Lenny, I think Lenny did it more than Squiggy.
I don't know. But they were upstairs neighbors, and I think they were on from the jump. The show first came out in 1976, and of course, you guys recall it was a spin-off of Happy Days.
Right.
We've discussed that. It ended in May 1983, but if you guys remember, the very beginning episodes, they were at the brewery with the glove on the bottle, but the last episodes they moved to Burbank. Remember? And then
Right.
the whole set was like this big open set, and there was an earthquake, and their beds were rolling.
Yeah, that's when
Uh,
the show, in my opinion, that's when it jumped the shark, right?
I
When
know I was kind of bummed about that, but Lenny and Squiggy were on from the beginning, and so was Carmine Ragusa, who was
I'll never go from rags to riches.
Right. He always burst in the door singing some show tune, and he
Right.
was a boxer, like a former boxer or something, right? And then he also did like singing telegrams or some crazy thing. I don't
Yeah, and
know.
he was madly in love with Shirley.
He loved Shirley, and she date him? Was it like
Yeah, I feel
was
like,
it a boyfriend?
well, it was like sitcom world, right? Where
Yeah,
you know how those things work, like they sort of have a boyfriend, but then they don't want to
just
make
comes
it a
around.
complete boyfriend because then it limits some of their story options. So I mean, I feel like the simple answer is yes,
Right.
but then there were episodes where Shirley was like on a date with somebody, or so
But I feel like he got jealous or something. But back to Lenny and Squiggy. Lenny was, I think he was a truck driver at the brewery, so he
yeah,
actually
okay.
worked with them, if
So
I
the tall
recall.
one, so Michael McKean was,
The
um,
tall one, yes. And he said he was not completely sure, but he thinks his last name was Polish for help. There's a hog in my kitchen. I don't know where that came from. And then Squiggy was supposed to be, they were greasers,
yeah,
and he was supposed to be like a childhood friend of Lenny. And they would always come in the door and go, "Hello," remember? Like
right.
that's
Hello.
yeah, I can't do
And
it.
they would like bust in, like they, the door would be like bam, hello. It actually probably long before Seinfeld and Kramer busting in, there was Lenny and Squiggy, right? And
Yeah.
I wonder,
Yeah, you're right.
I wonder if there was a little bit of Steinbeck influence, right? And with
Hmm.
Lenny and Squiggy,
Possibly.
I mean, it doesn't, the dynamic doesn't quite work out, but I find it interesting, because and my favorite episodes were the ones where Lenny and Squiggy were trying to like scheme something, like they're trying to like work some angle, and they were always trying to get at Laverne and Shirley and Shirley. And I remember one episode where um, Laverne had a pregnancy scare.
That was a kind of a big deal for prime time.
Right. Yeah. And I don't remember which season. It was one of the
I wonder
earlier
how they
seasons, though.
handled that. Wow.
Well, they used a lot of kind of
Mm-hmm.
euphemisms and stuff, but it was like in
Yeah.
trouble. Laverne's in trouble.
Right.
That's how they put it.
It's like Rizzo. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so Lenny comes over and he's like, "Well, the kid needs a father, and I'm going to ask you to marry me. I'm gonna do the right thing or something like that." Even though he had nothing to do with it, it wasn't his
Oh, now I wish
kid.
I would have seen that episode because I couldn't stand Lenny and Squiggy at all. But
Oh, I loved
I
them.
just remember they would burst in the door right when Laverne and Shirley were like talking about something really like awful, or I just took out the trash. Hello, and
Yeah,
always be like
yeah. Or it was
pouring
like,
some like.
what kind of an idiot would do something like that? Boom,
Mhm.
hello. Like they would. Yeah, that's how they use that writer's mechanism a lot. But I just thought they were
I
hilarious.
thought it was cute, and then Carmine it was Shirley's high school sweetheart.
Oh,
Apparently,
okay.
and he was the big ragu. He was a part-time boxer, and he was a former Golden Gloves champion, and he owned a dance studio,
That's
and he
right.
always wanted to make it big. I'm looking on MeTV right now. Thank you, MeTV. And in the final episode of the series, he auditioned for Hair. You guys, he was all like about hair,
Right, sure, because they were
and
out in
he
LA by
finally
that
landed
time.
a role. So I thought that
Yeah.
was super cute. And but anyway, forget all the side characters for a minute. What did you think when you first saw? How would you describe Shirley Feeney? Now she's the dark hair, and
Right.
she was kind of a little more meek, and Laverne was the blonde, if everybody remembers, and she was a little more crazy and loud. What did you think of Shirley Feeney?
The character, you mean? Like,
Yes.
okay, so
Not Cindy Williams, but Shirley Feeney.
yeah, so I remember watching the first couple seasons
Yeah.
of the show,
Yeah.
and the main thing that struck me was, and I think this happens to a lot of female friends whenever they see a show like Sex in the City or Laverne and Shirley or shows that depict women's friendships, you immediately pick out which one is you, right? And so I had shout out Karen, my kindergarten bestie, who you all have heard on the Gilligan's Island episode because she is the world's authority on that show. She and I were friends, and so I'm watching the show and I'm immediately saying, okay, Karen's Shirley and I'm Laverne. Like that was how it went. Yeah. Because I looked at Laverne and she's kind of loud and a little rough and and all that. And Karen Karen was just a lot more quiet and not as in your face as I have always been. So
Karen have Boo Boo Kitty,
yeah.
Black Kitty.
No, but see, that's what's kind of interesting. So the brashness of Laverne, yeah, I had that in spades, but the sentimentality of Shirley Feeney with her Boo Boo Kitty and how she was always worried. Although Karen was like that too, but it was like, Laverne, we can't do that. We have to do this, and she had a little bit of a more childlike kind of vulnerability and innocence. Yeah, and that was totally me too. Excuse me.
And I think it's funny. Apparently, Boo Boo Kitty she forgot the line in the script, and she just remembered that was her mom's cat's name, like in real life. So she just said she had that stuffed animal, and she's like Boo Boo Kitty, and they just kept going with it.
And a legend is born.
I thought that was cute. And another legend that was born was the Yiddish chant, the Yiddish hop-scotch chant that you were saying at the beginning was from Laverne's childhood. And Gary Marshall, of course, who was the producer, the director, he said, "Hey, Penny, what was that? Will you teach Cindy Williams that hopscotch chant you used to do when you were a kid?" So that was like the chant they did when they played hopscotch back in the day. In Brooklyn,
interesting. Which, of course, kicked off the theme song. Yeah, so let me get into the theme song because this is my deal, right? So
yeah,
I love deep dives on television themes because you find all kinds of interesting connections and nuggets. And so of course the theme song, nothing's gonna turn us back now, straight ahead and on the track, right? We're gonna make our dreams come true. So that was a song sung by an artist named Cyndi Greco.
Yes.
And the song itself, whoops. Dang it, I lost the page I was looking at here. So, okay, the song itself has kind of an interesting history, all right? So, as Amy said, they had the little hopscotch chant in the front, and it was nonsense. Like Haas and Pfeffer Incorporated, it's got nothing to do. People, excuse me, people would assume that it had something to do with Schatz Brewery or whatever, but that was, in fact, not the case. It was just that thing from Penny Marshall's childhood. So Charles Fox and Norman Gimbel wrote the theme song, and you remember they also created the theme song to Happy Days. Now, if you listen to our Happy Days episode, you know that we broke the story that the guy who sang the Happy Days theme song also did ghost vocals for none other than Leif Garrett. And we did a comparison, and if you listen to the voice, it's the same voice. So the deal was that when Charles Fox and Norman Gimbel wrote the theme, they had not even really seen a script or anything. All they knew was that Laverne and Shirley were blue-collar workers. They worked in a factory in Milwaukee, in this brewery, and they had hopes and dreams about getting out. Which we're going to address that in a minute because I've always wondered, like, okay, what exactly were their hopes and dreams? But anyway, so Cyndi Greco sang the theme song, and it became a top 40 hit. And that was kind of an era where you almost every show had some kind of a theme song. It wasn't just an opening couple of notes or whatever. It was like a song. So that became a hit for her. And
Did you see where they discovered her?
Oh, no, but go ahead.
They discovered Charles Fox and Norman Gimbel discovered her singing at Magic Mountain by the roller coasters. She had a little gig singing at Magic Mountain, and they were like, wait a second, she was performing there.
I love that.
And they had previously written The Happy Days, Killing Me Softly, and they were like, hey, can you come sing Making Our Dreams Come True? So I thought that was hilarious, and she explained all that on American Bandstand, you guys.
Yeah.
To Dick Clark.
Yeah, and that, I don't know if unfortunately is the right word, but that ended up being her only real hit. And here's what's kind of fun. So on the track, Cyndi Greco was backed by the Ron Hicklin Singers. And the Ron Hicklin Singers were on a lot of recordings. And if you guys study music at all, American pop music, between the 60s and 80s, there was a group of musicians called the Wrecking Crew. And go find the documentary called The Wrecking Crew. It is fascinating. Totally fascinating. You find out...
sounds, yeah.
Yeah, you find out that these Wrecking Crew musicians were on everything. And a lot of records that you thought were performed by the bands whose records you were buying, it was actually the Wrecking Crew that was on the record. And one example was the bass player, who was a chick, by the way. She did almost all the bass lines for so many Beach Boys records. And she's on, if you listen to any hit between like 1960 and 1980, it's probably her on a bass. But the Ron Hicklin Singers were kind of the vocal equivalent of the Wrecking Crew. They just, people were like, get the Hicklin Singers, and they would bring them in. And they are mostly known as the real singers behind the background vocals on the Partridge Family records.
Oh,
right.
It's like learning there's no Santa Claus right
I
now.
know. So when you hear, the ba 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 ba, and I Think I Love You, like that's the Ron Hicklin Singers, and they were doing the background vocals for the Laverne and Shirley theme song. And just so you know, some other theme songs that the Ron Hicklin Singers were behind, a little show, Batman. Yeah, they did that. They did That Girl. They were on the Happy Days song. Excuse me. Gosh, I'm sorry about my throat today, you guys. And if you remember Wonder Woman, they did that too. And then
The World Is Waiting for You. Yeah. I'm sorry guys.
And this really, I love this deep dive stuff, because I was the kid who read every single fine print thing in the liner notes on records, because I was like, oh my God, this guy was on that record too. So remember back in the 70s, Kawasaki, let the good times roll. Kawasaki, let the good times roll. They sang that. They sang the You Deserve a Break Today McDonald's ad. And basically did like a bazillion other commercials, radio jingles, like W whatever. And this is what the group actually appeared on. So when you think you're listening to the Brady Kids, you're listening to them. When you think you're listening to, on Cher, Dark Lady, they were on that record. That is one of my favorite songs. Gary Lewis and the Playboys, a bunch of Henry Mancini stuff. The Monkees, I'm a Believer. That's these guys. Gary Puckett and the Union Gap. All right. Young girl, get out of my mind. Okay, they were on that. Paul Revere and the Raiders. They were on a Ringo Starr record called Oh My My, and a Gene Vincent song. And then there were a couple of the guys that were in this group. they sang on MacArthur Park. Remember that tune? And there were a couple different versions of it, but the older one is what they sang on. And then the theme song for MASH actually had words to it. And the song is called Suicide is Painless. And they sang the vocal version of that song. So totally interesting.
Instrumental, and now I see why. The lyrics supported that.
And then, because you know what happens, I keep digging. So one of the Hicklin Singers was a guy named John Baylor, and he and his brother Tom were in this group. So Tom Baylor was a good friend of Quincy Jones, and he was the associate producer on We Are the World. So, like, here comes the connection between the Laverne.
Sorry, go on.
Don't even. I can't. I gotta get this out. So here's the connection between the Laverne and Shirley theme song, right? We're gonna do it, and then we get to We Are the World. Then he co-wrote "She's Out of My Life," the Michael Jackson song.
Leif Garrett at the end, by any chance?
I have not.
I don't know.
Yeah, like it's
full circle.
Right. It's totally crazy because. All right, here's the final connection.
Oh, let's hear it.
So Ron Hicklin did his his Happy Days theme, but he wasn't the guy that did the ghost vocals for Leif Garrett. So that is a guy whose name I completely forgot, even though we did a whole thing on it.
Kidding.
Yeah.
That is a very good deep dive.
Right. So anyway, Google the Ron Hicklin Singers one day while you're waiting for the doctor or just sitting around, and you'll be blown away. So just to wrap it up, these were the people in it. So Sally Stevens was the soprano. Ron Hicklin was the lead tenor. Tom and John Baylor were both tenors. Jackie Ward was the alto, and Gene Morford was the bass singer. So how about that for a deep dive into We're Gonna Do It?
The ocean. That was touching the ocean floor. Deep
right?
dive.
I know. That was like that was like below the silt level. Yeah, totally. So back to the show.
Yes.
Because it's like 4 days later. But back to the show. I want to know, Aim. Let's get into Laverne's father and the pizzeria.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about Shirley. We thought she was sensitive. She had Boo Boo Kitty.
Right.
She dated the big ragu. It was her high school sweetheart. But then, we have not talked about the one and only Laverne. Now, how did you describe her? Tell me really quick.
Well, I found Laverne to be, she was like streetwise. She was loud, brash, kind of funny, kind of rough around the edges, I guess. Not as refined as Shirley. And she had that great accent.
She'd say sure. I can't
Cheryl.
even say it. Yeah.
It was.
She had the L, you guys, always the L monogram on her sweater or on her cardigan or on her shirt. And she found that initially by, I guess in some department store, she saw it with an L or some other monogram. And she thought, oh, my character, I want her to have that. So I thought that was kind of cute.
I love that.
And of course, you guys think of milk and Pepsi when you think of Laverne DeFazio.
Heck yeah. And you tried it, right, Aim, at some point?
I probably did, but she...
it's horrible. It's gross.
She grew up... Laverne in the show, Laverne Marie DeFazio is... she grew up in Brooklyn. I think in real life she grew up in Brooklyn, too. She was Italian. Her parents moved to Milwaukee when her mother passed away. This is her backstory. And of course, she's working alongside her best friend, Shirley. And this milk and Pepsi is something that Penny Marshall actually drank back in the day. But she said her mother would, you have to drink milk every day. So before you can drink soda or pop,
Mm-hmm.
So Penny Marshall would pour her milk and just kind of do a dash of Pepsi on the top. It wasn't like Pepsi with the dash of milk. It was the other way around. And that's what she actually drank and she actually liked. But on the show, Laverne was kind of tough talking. She had her dukes up.
Right.
So she was the only character to appear in all 178 episodes of the show, because the very last season, I think Cindy Williams went off to have a child or something, but it was Laverne by herself on the very last season. And you guys, this show, side note, had a ton of Golden Globe nominations and Emmy nominations. I didn't even realize that. I thought that was super cute. But and one more thing we forgot about Shirley, you guys, didn't she, when she tried to hold back a laugh, didn't she like bite her knuckles or have some funny? There was a lot of physical comedy in the show, which they're always falling over things like Jack Tripper, which I thought was super cute.
Cindy Williams was really well. So of course so was Penny Marshall, but Cindy Williams was really good at like she was so animated. Her face,
right?
Right? Yeah, it was like a cartoony kind of thing. She was really skilled at that kind of stuff.
I thought they did so well. And the show was just a lot of physical comedy. People really liked it. They liked the characters. They had seen them before. They were friends of Fonzie.
Right.
And people really got into the show. And I think that song that you mentioned was one of the big things. Because personally, when I heard the theme song to MASH, I tried to turn off the TV. I was like, I'm out of here. Yeah. But Laverne and Shirley, when I heard that hop-scotch chant.
Yeah, MASH was like a grown-up show. Right?
I got excited. And when Cindy Williams was not in the last season, they had kids chanting the hopscotch chant.
Yes, because she was only in the first 2 episodes of the final season, and then she quote unquote got married. And,
is that what it was?
And like on sitcoms, when you get married, you disappear. It's like the equivalent of death. Your character gets married, and you're never seen or heard from again. And
so she was on a few episodes then.
Yeah, just a couple to set that up. And then Michael McKean in the final season, he went off to shoot Spinal Tap. This is Spinal Tap, which he co-wrote with Christopher Guest and other guys. And that, I mean, we're gonna do an episode on Spinal Tap at some point. Okay.
Did you guys know? And stop me if you're about to say this. Spinal Tap actually all appeared together in one of those episodes on Laverne and Shirley. Did you guys know that?
No, I didn't know that. Which episode? In the final season?
Bus Stop. So Christopher Guest was on there, Harry Shearer and Michael McKean, and they were all, I don't remember what they were doing, but they were just like, they had like plaid on and they like had nerd glasses on, but they were all on an episode together.
I love that. Okay, that
cool?
That is an Easter egg. I got to look that up now because I did not know that.
Yeah.
And so he left. He was kind of a guest star, like he'd pop up, but it pretty much left Laverne and Squiggy to kind of carry out the show. And then the final episode of their 8th season was actually supposed to be a spin-off for Carmine. It was like a setup, to try to spin the show off. And I'll be honest, I was not all that into the last 2 seasons. I mean, when they moved the show to LA, I just kind of it just didn't work for me. Like for me, it really didn't. I felt like I loved the uniqueness of the Milwaukee setting for Laverne and Shirley, because like
I did too,
right? Like everything is in LA, that's the default. Like, we'll set it in LA.
It was Burbank, they were in Burbank, and then Carmine was trying out for all these acting roles and all this stuff. Yeah,
and the set, the Los Angeles set. I don't know what that was before. Maybe you know him. But I swear it was somebody else's apartment before that. Like it
just cleared out the couches.
Right, exactly.
So and then Laverne and Shirley, they took jobs at a department store called Bardwell's, and they were gift wrappers. Like, how do they live there as gift? They were gift wrappers.
Yeah.
Isn't that like seasonal? Isn't it like only in December? So I thought that was funny. And then Lenny and Squiggy started a talent agency. Like that was what they did.
Right.
Called Squigganowski or some crazy thing. And then, yeah, everybody suddenly had LA jobs. It's like, oh, all right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, you guys. Remember Rhonda Lee? She was like the neighbor, like the actress.
Rhonda.
Hey, hi ho, it's Rhonda.
Yeah.
She'd come in like, hi ho, or something like that.
Yeah. What was she the one? Was she the one who always wore the fur coat?
She always had like, some kind of ruffled something, and she was really tall, and she
Oh
had blonde.
no. Okay, I'm thinking of somebody else. And remember, she was like their arch enemy.
The arch enemy. Okay, so
Yeah,
Rhonda
she was like
was
she married a
singer.
rich guy. Oh my gosh, I'm
Was it Big Rosie?
Big Rosie.
Yeah, she married a rich doctor.
Right,
And she
right.
like on their faces like constantly. And
Yes.
he's a proctologist, so they always made fun of that.
Right, right. But yeah, like she'd stroll into the pizzeria, and they always had the character in some fur coat, and she was real loud, a lot like Laverne.
Yeah.
But she was always chapping their hides about how
She always
rich
called
she
them
was.
bimbos and stuff.
Right. Yeah. What was the pizzeria called?
I don't know, the pizzeria, I don't remember, but I think it was, didn't the landlord, Mrs. Babbitt, end up marrying Laverne's dad or something? And that was the pizzeria?
Yeah, and then in the end, well, he had the pizzeria first.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, and
So that was Frank DeFazio. That was the dad, right?
Right.
He ran the Pizza Bowl, which
Pizza
was
Bowl.
a local hangout.
That's what it
And
was.
then, yeah, and in Burbank, then they opened up Cowboy Bill's. Wait, what?
Right.
And he called her Muffin, which I thought was cute.
And then when the actress who played, was it Babbitt or Babish?
I don't know, Babish probably. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I don't remember. When she left to do something else, then the story had her leaving Frank.
Yeah.
Like she walked out on him. See, and this was an issue for me with these sitcoms, and it kind of goes back to like one of our episodes where we discuss what we learned from TV and like the whole "don't try this at home."
Right.
Sometimes Laverne and Shirley would get real serious,
Right.
and that always annoyed me. Like, this is not family. Remember that show? This is not.
I like that show.
This is not Little House on the Prairie where there's locusts and tornadoes and whatever. I wanted to laugh. Yeah, and I didn't want to have some morality play or some lesson.
Laverne DeFazio, right?
Wait, say that again. You cut out.
Especially you didn't want to hear someone, Laverne DeFazio of all people, preaching to you. I was like, Laverne's going to tell me what to do?
Right.
Come on.
Exactly. Yeah, it was like they would get earnest. And many, many years later, when Seinfeld was being produced, I read about this no hugs policy. Like because Seinfeld never wanted to do that. The show, the design of the show through Jerry Seinfeld and the Larry David, who created the show, they never wanted to have those moments where all of a sudden it gets real serious and somebody learns a lesson or eats crow. And so it was like no hugs. That's what they called it. And I wish that, as much as I love all of those sitcoms produced by Gary Marshall and that whole kind of ABC family, right, with all these
people, yeah.
Right. I don't want to see the episode where somebody's got a drug problem, or someone's, somebody's doing something scary.
I liked those. I liked those episodes.
I didn't like it. But see,
because they really got me, because I wasn't expecting them.
Yeah, but
like,
didn't
wow.
they disturb you though? Like they took you
I was
out
super
of
disturbed, but it really grabbed me. But Laverne was not credible to me. I was like, I am not listening.
You
to this
really had a
lady.
problem with Laverne, didn't you?
She hangs out with friggin' Lenny. I'm like, no.
Well,
But
yeah, he
what was
wasn't her
that time
boyfriend
period, you guys? Was it the same as Happy Days then? So like supposed to be like late 50s through late 60s. Was that supposed to be their time period?
Yeah, because the final season of Laverne and Shirley was supposed to have been 1967, even though
okay.
the people had remarkably 80s looking
Right?
hair and wardrobe and
Right.
Yeah, that was something I loved about the first couple seasons too. Is they like you'd see Shirley and Laverne with the spit curls, right, and the tape, and they'd go to bed with like the clips in their hair and stuff.
Cute. They had rollers. You guys, we are forgetting the fifth season when they straight up went into the army. Remember? They went into the Army Reserve and then it
Oh,
became a cartoon.
I don't. Oh no. Okay, I don't remember that at
Oh
all.
yeah, there was Vicki Lawrence from Mama's Family was like the sergeant. Nobody remembers this. I remember like I didn't like it,
Yeah,
but I
I'm
remember it became a
drawing a blank.
cartoon. I'm like,
Yeah.
what are these people doing
Was that after
in
Private
the army?
Benjamin? Like, was it kind of a,
Probably.
you know what? Let's have Laverne and Shirley go into the army. This stuff's great, and then they put her in the army.
And there was a commanding pig named Sergeant Squealy who was like Ron Polillo, like from friggin' Welcome Back Kotter. Was always like going to report
Horseshack?
them. Horseshack was always going to report them to some like Sergeant Turnbuckle and all this crazy stuff. Yeah,
Why?
they were
No,
in the
wait a
army.
minute. Why? So in the cartoon, they started mixing animals and humans?
No, well, actually, the cartoon was just like they'd go into space out of nowhere. So forget the
Oh.
cartoon, but Sergeant Squealy was a guy,
Oh, you meant.
and
I
they called him a pig. Yeah, and he was always like
thought you
reporting
meant
back.
literally he was a pig. And so
No, they
I
just
was like, wait a minute. There was like a pig?
and you know what's funny? Lenny and Squiggy, you guys, I forgot to say this. When they recreated those characters, the two guys in real life, they were completely stoned as F. And they recreated them on marijuana, just so you guys know.
Oh, when
So I thought
you
that was
mean when
funny.
Michael McKean and David Lander
Yep.
were in that comedy
Back in
troupe?
the day at Carnegie Mellon, yeah, they were like, they got really
Ah.
high and they were like, we're going to create, or they just came up with these like greasers. But you know, Cindy Williams and Penny Marshall, they were writers together as well.
Oh, I did not know that. So they
Yeah, and I
also
found that
contributed
very
to the
interesting.
ideas? Interesting.
I don't know. The show was kind of Gary Marshall had a show called a script that I don't think he ever put out called Hey Landlord in
Mm-hmm.
the I'd say like the mid 60s, and it was a total flop, and they kind of rehashed a little bit of that for Laverne and Shirley. And I think I don't know, like it was kind of the same setup. It was like but it was two guys, I think, living in an apartment. But he kind
Ah.
of rehashed that for Laverne and Shirley. He had it fleshed out already. And so that was that. And then that the one where they were in the army, yeah, it became a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, you guys. Like where the background is just it was just a mess. This whole show was out of control.
Yeah, I don't remember that cartoon at
I do. I
all.
was like, wait, what? I was like, what is happening right now?
Yeah, that's
It
crazy.
was out of control.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
thought
it
the
was crazy.
speaking of the landlord thing in their basement apartment, I thought one of the little mechanisms, the little comedy tricks they used really well was that window, right up on the street
I
where you could
love
only,
that
yeah, you
window.
could
I
only see like
always wanted
people's
to
feet.
live. Yeah, I wanted to live in an apartment like that where people couldn't look in my windows. I always felt like uncomfortable. And I
Yeah.
loved that you could see feet. I'm like, nobody's gonna look down there and look in their window. And that was my favorite thing was those windows.
Yeah, and if something did happen, like they used it in a lot of funny ways, like somebody bending down and peering in, or they would
Did
just
someone
see
ever
some
do that?
feet up there. Yeah, there particularly there were some episodes where like it depended on whose feet you saw, and that was some kind of
Really?
a punchline or butt of the joke or whatever. That I just thought they used that really well, and the
Loved
whole
that.
like the stairs, and then they had the closet right there, and then the front door, and there was a lot of great physical comedy they did with like opening and closing different doors and people hiding and stuff like that. Those were
Remember when like one of them would open the closet door and the other one would open the front door and it would like slam together?
yeah.
And then they'd be all,
Exactly.
oh, shucks. And they'd be like, so I found out you guys where they were first worked together, Cindy and Penny. They were writers for Francis Ford Coppola. They were
What?
on a writing team.
For
It,
what does it say, what
he was
project or
producing a spoof called Around the Time of the Bicentennial in like 70, what, six? And they were on a writing team for something called My Country 'Tis of Thee, which Francis Ford Coppola was putting together. They were on the team with Steve Martin and a bunch of other people, and they kind of plucked them out of that to put them in Happy Days as the dates. So like that's how they were. That's the crowd they were in to even get in on this show. And of course,
wow.
Penny was Gary Marshall, the creator's sister, of
Right.
course.
Little nepotism. But my gosh, what a career Penny Marshall, rest in peace, went on to have, right? And directing League of Their Own and writing all kinds of stuff, and she and from what I understand, she and Carrie Fisher were very close friends too. They spent a lot of time together too.
Who did she marry, you guys, in like the 80s? I'm drawing
Rob
a blank.
Reiner.
Yes.
Well, it was actually in the 70s, I think.
70s, yeah.
She because who was Meathead on the Archie Bunker on All in the Family. Yeah, and then Cindy Williams went on to marry Bill Hudson from the Hudson Brothers.
Oh, you guys.
So she became stepmom, basically, to Kate Hudson and Oliver Hudson, who were Goldie Hawn's kids with Bill Hudson.
Oh, see, I love that kind of stuff. I think it's so fun.
It's interesting to connect these dots to me, because you sort of begin to see how these things organically happened and how that's why I get so excited when I start connecting all of the theme songs and all these musicians who worked on different records, and you realize, oh, this guy played bass on this, and this, and they're totally different.
It's fun.
Yeah, it just, to me, for some reason, it's really interesting to know that. Totally useless information. Okay.
Well, here's some more useless information. Lenny and Squiggy, I was wrong, you guys. They were not originally part of the show. They were not. And Michael McKean said, I think we were probably thrown in there to make these two look a lot classier. Like they were less on the ladder. Yeah, I guess they weren't.
Like they had to throw people of their stature in to class up Laverne and Shirley.
Such dorks.
So does it say when they first appeared? It had to be the first season, right?
I guess, yeah. Because I remember them from pretty early on, but I think it's funny that they were supposed to play, like they played like the loose girls who would like go all the way.
Right.
They were supposed to be like, which is sad. And they became
changed.
more lovable.
Yeah, but that changed later on. Like after, remember the term vodio do do?
Yes.
Right? Like that was the euphemism for sex. And I remember maybe after the first couple of seasons, suddenly there was a whole, maybe it coincided with the morality play and all this stuff, but suddenly Laverne and Shirley, they would not vodio do do with just anybody.
Okay.
And
that's good.
And the term I also recall was hot to trot.
Ooh.
They were no longer hot to trot.
They were a little fast at first.
Yeah.
And it's cute. I like that they made him a little different. They made him more lovable.
Yeah, I like the lovable part. Yeah, like I said, I don't want to watch sitcoms to get serious and stuff. I can go watch some drama for that, but I did love probably the first 5 seasons. I just thought it was a fun, warm little show, and they had a good array of side characters who were played by great actors and funny people, and
I think so too.
Right, and the storylines were always typical of a sitcom. There's certain sitcoms where they tend to stick to real simple things, and even though the show was a period show set in the 50s, they didn't really get into historical, it was more like day-to-day, mundane little storylines between the characters. And I really liked that. I liked that. Like, it was just like, oh, Laverne, wears roller skates at the pizzeria, or, Shirley, and, a lot of misunderstandings. A lot of double entendres, that kind of stuff.
They called them, well, I guess Penny Marshall said the characters were re-virginized, for the show.
Oh, interesting. What did she say about that?
She just said, they were a little supposed to be very brassy and fast and sleazy for the Happy Days episode, but they were re-virginized and portrayed as blue collar and unpolished, but still somewhat innocent. For Laverne and Shirley, but they played the field, but they never, vodio do do.
Yeah.
So I thought that was super, super cute. But off camera, apparently they were a little bit of partiers, you guys.
Really? Do tell.
Uh-huh. And I don't want to say, who was being the diva, but there was a lot of temper tantrums. There were
Between
rumors. Dare I
between
say
them?
what the rumors?
Yeah, no. Well, cite the
Shall I or no?
source.
Or are we going to ruin this?
Cite the
I don't
source
have
of the
good
rumors.
sources. These are rumors, so maybe I just won't say anything.
Well, I want to know. These are
Well,
disclaimer. These are purely rumors, folks. Internet rumors.
internet rumors say that there was just a ton of partying, a ton of coke, a ton of because it's like late 70s, early 80s, like people not showing up, people fighting. And it is said that Cindy Williams' manager would like stand off stage and like time the laughs and like Penny Marshall got more laughs than her. Like there was people behind the scenes that started getting super caught up in the show. And it was actually I read Gary Marshall's book. It was kind of a hostile work environment when it got super, super popular. Kind of like what happened to Three's Company, you
Yeah,
guys.
I was
How
just gonna say
yeah,
that.
it was
Yep.
very much the same thing where people started saying, "Oh, she's getting more laughs than me," and you know, so a lot of ego related issues, it is alleged were on the show.
Well, if it is true, it doesn't surprise me
Right.
really. That I'm sure that when millions of dollars are at stake in any venture, right? Whether it's a
Of
band
course.
or a company that goes from small to large, or a television show that goes from no ratings to
Right.
huge ratings, and
Huh?
the dynamics are bound to change. The power structure changes, and I'm sure that it's probably difficult um, to keep it steadfast. I mean, I think it's very curious, and maybe it's a testament to Henry Winkler and what an extraordinarily nice guy he is. But you hear some behind the scenes issues on Happy Days here and there, but that show didn't really destroy itself from the inside out, I don't think. Which it seems like Laverne and Shirley, uh, especially those last two seasons, like what were they thinking? I mean, maybe they were trying to inject new life into the show, and they'd sort of burned out all the Milwaukee stories, and so they moved him to L.A. But they could have moved him anywhere. They could have had one of them buy a house, or do something else. But instead, it was like, oh, okay, we're moving to L.A.
Right.
All right,
Yeah, I don't know what that was about, but it could have been just an attempt, which we call jump the shark, but it could have been an attempt to just increase ratings. Let's bring in a kid. You've heard all
yeah.
these things.
Which much of the time, those attempts do create a jump the shark scenario, crediting to Fonzie, incidentally, and his jump the shark episode, which is where that phrase came from. But yeah, that's interesting, and I I feel like the simplicity of the show, and it was like cozy. That's the word I'm looking for.
It
The
really
Right, like the
was.
first few seasons, it was just this cozy little show about these two friends, and they lived in this little apartment together, and you
And you know
know,
what? They didn't have college degrees. They tried not to be, they tried to fight off those bimbo images.
right.
They were not like knockouts. They weren't like these perfect looking people. They really, a lot of people very much related to
Yeah,
them.
like beautiful, but not. They were beautiful women, but not in like a Barbie
Right.
doll beauty. It was like a unique and
They were
individual
very
beauty.
relatable.
Yeah, yeah, and then the storylines often too featured by the end of it, even in the funny ones, not just the serious ones, the morality direction, it usually featured them making the right decision, which was kind of cool. Like they showed the characters, maybe Laverne didn't want to do something, or she was lying about something, and then by the end of it, she would say, "Oh, you know what?" And then she would come clean, or Shirley would not be wanting to do something she knew she should do, and
And they struggled with it just like, regular people.
right, and being being a young preteen like I was, or a little kid when it started,
Right.
a real little kid, you pick up on that and you learn that, and the message you get is like, oh, okay, so being a good person and doing the right thing, that's how the story's supposed to end, you know.
And you know what? And also, like you said before, their apartment wasn't perfect. It wasn't something they couldn't afford.
Yeah,
It was like, okay, there's like an Afghan on the couch, and
yeah,
it
like
was
hand me down
very,
furniture, and
yeah, Yeah.
old
It
stuff.
was it was very realistic to me, and I really and their clothes weren't super fancy, it was like because like Chrissy Snow had this hot rollered hair every day, it's just
Right.
like I really just felt like they were very relatable, and they had problems like everybody else, and they'd get sad over things, and and I liked they were not married, and you just saw a different side of life. It was kind of something that I don't think had been covered yet on TV because it was a lot of family
Yeah,
shows.
right, right.
So it was
And
two single women who weren't yet married, and they were roommates, and it's like, oh, okay,
right, right. And it departed a little bit from, like, for example, That Girl, which
Right,
was probably a decade earlier,
right,
or at least, 5, 6 years earlier. That show depicted a single woman,
true.
but her obsession and her main goal was to get Donald
Mm,
to marry her. That was what she was all about. And Three's
yeah,
Company, it was mostly the double entendres of and the whole idea, the man with two women, so that was the dynamic. But in Laverne and Shirley, it really just focused on their friendship, and that was cool, like a show about two women friends. And a lot of the storylines were about things that happened in relation to their friendship.
yeah.
And my favorite episodes were the ones where they would be, they'd be in their pajamas at home, talking about something or
Me
trying to solve something.
too.
Right? There was something really cozy. It was like a
Yes.
sleepover thing. And when you were a little girl, you thought you'd grow up and have that kind of friend and have that kind of, like, my kindergarten bestie Karen and I, we thought we would grow up and live like Laverne and Shirley.
You know what? That might be the one that I did think that about. Because remember, I was saying I don't remember what I thought, but that one I could see happening.
Yeah.
And I just remember, like in the final scenes, Shirley discovered she was pregnant. She like left a note. She just like left some note, and she was just gone.
Right. I'm
It's
going to get
crazy.
married now, which means I have to disappear off the face of the earth.
Like Richie Cunningham's older brother. He's just like boop. Peace.
He didn't even get married. He just
Oh
disappeared.
yeah, he just took off.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I liked them.
Well, so Aim, we are out of time, which is
I
yet
want to stay in
another.
Milwaukee. Can
I
we stay in
know.
Milwaukee?
I know. I don't want to go to LA. I want to stay in Milwaukee.
I
I'm
want to
sure
stay in
this is
Milwaukee.
definitely not the last time, though, that we will touch on Laverne and Shirley. Like,
And all their blind dates that they had 50,000 blind dates.
right, right. All the dates. Yeah. And
So many.
right. And the dynamics with Laverne trying to make sure her father doesn't find out about something.
Right?
Even
I
though,
love all of them. I loved
right.
the landlord, her dad. They were just lovely. That show gave me the warm fuzzies.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so thanks you guys for checking this out. And as always, hit us up in our DMs because we read every single one. Check us out on our website, glitterboomgirls.com. We have an Insta. We're total Insta hip. And that's Glitter Bee Girls. And then on Twitter, we've got Glitter Bee Girls on Twitter too. But yeah, if you have comments or whatever, and if you go to our YouTube channel, there's a playlist called Pod Show. I really need extra tea right now, Aim. Like this Laverne and Shirley episode has wiped me out. Like
You know what? There was a lot of info. And by the way, you guys, we are not on TikTok.
Yeah, so check out our YouTube channel because we have a playlist called Podcast Extras. And their topic, stuff that we've covered, and we find videos and all that and collect it all into this playlist. So we'll see if we can find some Laverne and Shirley clips on YouTube. But as always, we love you guys, and a special hello, bonjour, ciao. How do you say hello in German?
I forgot. I always say tschüss, but that's goodbye.
Oh shucks. Well, anyway, we'll learn that for next time. Hello to all of our listeners in Europe and Japan. Like, how cool is that?
Hello is
Hello? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, we're gonna have to figure out how to say hello in all the languages of all the worldwide listeners. So, but welcome, you guys. We love you, and we're really happy that you're with us. So, until next time, I'm Robbie-Ann McPherson on the East Coast.
And I'm Amy Asberg in the West Coast.
Thanks for listening, you guys. We'll see ya.
Bye-bye, guys.